Hello friends, and particularly for this occasion, viewers of Dovetail Games' Festival of Rail. Welcome into my little corner of the internet. My name's AJ Omega. I'm the presenter of a little show on YouTube called Another Station, Another Mile. Normally talking about old, real locomotives. Well, today we're driving an old virtual train instead. On probably, on balance, my favourite route in trains in World 2. It's the West Cornwall local. Today we're going to be taking an absolute icon, a legend of British Railways diesel traction, and we're going to be hauling the mail. Quite literally, we're taking the mail down to Penzance from our starting location at St Austell, and this is our steed for the job. 47469. Say it after me. Nice. It's a nippy January morning. I wanted it to be realistic. It's in the dead of winter. It's a bit chilly. Let's do a little systems check. Master key on. Going to need that to be on. We also need that to be set to forward. Oh, and most importantly, what's the horn doing? Yep, that's working. Good. Let's get this thing moving, shall we? Let's go. This is only on 20% throttle, and we were already risking a bit of wheel spin there. Loud. The noise. That is a rumble. Those Sulzer engines. Or the Sulzer engine, I should say. Have a look and see what's going on at the back of the train as well. So there's the end of our rake of coaches. This is a complete rake of British Rail Mark 1 full brake coaches. Normally you'd have one, maybe two if you're being generous, but normally one in a consist for long distance passenger trains where they throw all the luggage. Also, this view is utterly stunning. Can we just appreciate that for a moment? I mean, just look at this. This is absolute perfection. Oh, and the sun gleaming through the trees, glinting through the trees. No leaves on at the moment because, you know, winter. Oh, the glow, the yellow glow. Oh, that is beautiful. One thing I've always said, again and again and again, because it bears repeating, one of my favourite things about the Dovetail games, especially Train Sim World games, has always been the lighting. The lighting and the kind of weather, atmospheric effects, the sunshine glinting off the locos, the lighting, everything looks gorgeous. It looks great. It really does from that perspective. And something like this, a very cold, early morning in January. Yeah, it's just beautiful. Anyway, I'm rambling on. I actually should be doing 60 miles an hour at this point, so should we do that? Because this throttle goes all the way up to 10. It doesn't quite go up to 11, but I think as you can hear, it doesn't need to. Yeah, you wanted to haul the mail. We have got the loco for the job. There you go. Promise I'll stop taking photos now. And instead, what I'll do is take a sip of my mug of tea that I prepared for this early morning jaunt. Well, if you're up at 8:30 in the morning driving trains across Cornwall, you need a cup of tea, don't you? Oh yes, lovely. There we go. Oh, that's just spectacular. I mustn't drive the entire route in this camera view, especially as that was a yellow signal we just went through. And at the moment, the next signal, in just under a mile away, is red. So we'll have to be a little bit careful. We've sped up to 37 miles an hour. Let's give a little initial application of brake, while also taking another screenshot, because just look at that beautiful view. I think you're starting to see very quickly why I have such a love affair with the West Country, the Great Western Main Lines and the Cornish Main Lines, things like that. It's just my kind of part of the world, really. So this is the go via location marker that's coming up. The actual red signal is still 900 odd yards away, so we can cruise up to this. We're just, because it's only the mail train, we are looking to stop at Penzance. We're looking to get to Penzance just before 9:20. So in about 50 minutes spot on. So now what I'm wondering is, you know, just how loud can this thing be? What I'm also wondering is my tea good to drink? Oh yes it is. Oh yes. But what I'm also wondering above all of those things is how pretty this game can be. No, that's not that. What I'm actually wondering about is Yes, that's what I thought. Okay. I did wonder if, once we had gone via that location marker, whether that would turn the signal up ahead green. If we had the road, as it were. And, well, we do. So that can mean one thing, and one thing only. We're going to make a lot of noise. Just listen to it. It's the sound of God waking up hungover and then discovering there's an unpaid tax bill outside his front door. That is angry. He's angry, is what I'm saying. This is beautiful. Going past the freight plant here. There's various scenarios featured here. I should also remember the name of this plant. I'm good with a lot of the stations on this route. But most importantly, we've got the road. We've got 60 miles an hour coming through the points. We've got the sun rising in the distance. There's a beautiful backdrop. And I promise I will stop spamming screenshots. But there you go. There's proof of how much I really enjoy the... There's a little branch going off up there as well. Where would that go? Where would that go? I'm trying to remember. Answers in the comments. So... Well, at the moment, the speed limit is still showing 65 on the speedometer, but I wonder if that's just... Well, we should be clear of it now. We're now into a section of single track running. And what's particularly interesting about this is we are up to 60 miles an hour, so I'm just going to let off the gas now. Let off the throttle. What's interesting about this section is, as you can see to the left of our loco, to driver's left, there's very much a big space between our track and the edge of the, what would be the words, the alignment, the track bed, if you will. Looks like almost as if there was space for another track there at some point. Well, yeah, that's kind of what it was. This section was singled at some point. I can't remember off the top of my head when, but yeah, once upon a time this would definitely have been double track. And you can tell that by the fact that the track bed is definitely wide enough for 2 tracks, even though only 1 is on it at the moment. It's a bit like there's certain giveaways that you can have, that you can spot for spotting the history and what used to be in a certain location. Like, for example, in my experience, 90% of car parks at railway stations are former freight yards or freight signage, goods yards, goods sheds, things like that. Especially if they angle out from the main running lines at an angle, like they're not kind of square on, if that makes sense. That almost certainly would have been a fan of sidings for goods, because at once upon a time, when there were no roads or lorries or vans or anything like that, all freight would have gone by rail. Just like, indeed, our rake of mail. That used to go by train once upon a time. And right now, it is going by train. How do I know that? Well, I'm driving the train in question. And we're on quite a steep decline down here. This is another great thing about Devon and Cornwall. It's just, there's no part of it that's flat in any way. None of it is flat in any way. It's all up and hill and down dale, especially around Dartmoor and places like that. I mean, there's a reason why no railways go through or over Dartmoor. You just can't do it. The Great Western Railway, when they got down to that part of the world, they ran their Great Western Main Line along the seawall. That's how we got the Dawlish seawall and things like that. The London South Western Railway decided to go the other way and go over the top of Dartmoor on the line which has just recently partially reopened back to Oakhampton. But of course, that used to be an entire line that went all the way over the Meldon Viaduct, all the way down to Tavistock and Beer Alston, Gunners Lake, places like that, all the way down to Plymouth. But basically, they both had to go round Dartmoor because it was just so hilly. There was no way they could tunnel through or go over the top of it. You just couldn't do it. And even in this part of the world, it's not exactly billiard table smooth. And that's one of the reasons I love it. You get some spectacular scenery in all directions. And we're actually, in the time it's taken me to explain about how hilly this part of the country is, we've gone from a 1.4% downhill gradient to a 0.8% uphill. And I've not just left the brake on. Good. I say that because generally I have done that a few times. But as you can see, we are losing speed, so we might want to pick up the throttle a bit again. It's not by much, but it can all add up across a run like this. on a morning like this. I said I wouldn't keep spamming screenshots. I will try my best. I'm sorry. It's just the game is far too pretty for its own good. I'll sip tea instead. How about that? And I'll give the horn a little honk. Hang on. It's a very good sounding horn on this 47, which of course I think is originally from the... Come on, let's get moving. I'm just looking over, I'll just put the throttle up to max because I keep looking over the speedometer and we're still losing speed. It's like, come on. We are going, the incline is getting steeper. Here we go. You really do have to bring the noise with this thing. As Public Enemy once sang, bring the noise. This is this loco in a nutshell, really. First built in the 1960s. Many, many examples still in service today, including a good 30 odd, I think, which are preserved on various heritage lines. And it's funny because they are such a unique thing and such a famous part of British rail history now. Whereas back in the day, my dad always said, who was a big train spotter in the 70s, he always said that there was they were greeted with eye rolls. Oh, another bloody 47, because they were just everywhere. They were basically their generation's equivalent of the Class 66 today. You'll see a 66 basically, if you travel on the trains for any length of time in the UK, you'll probably see a Class 66, just by accident, you know? There's just so many of them. So this tea is very good. But also, and once again, while we've been talking, look at we're now at a 1.5% downhill gradient again. So this is what I'm saying. Keeps you on your toes as a driver. That's kind of what you want. And yeah, it's funny how back in the day they were treated as just another, you know, just a boring, like, oh, why is there something not more exciting around, like a Deltic or a Western or, you know, something like that? Oh, it's going to be another 47, so boring. Nowadays, it's like they are legends and, well, rare. But there are still a lot of them around, either in active service or preserved. Them and the Class 37s are kind of the two that have really stood the test of time, and the Class 08s, but I guess there's millions of 08s around. And if you're looking at this loco and you're thinking, well, I don't recognize it, but aren't there some locos that look very similar to this that operate, say, the Night Riviera for GWR? You'd be right. They do look very similar. Because the Class 57s that operate the Night Riviera, and there's a few others here and there, I think some work for like West Coast Railways and that, for rail tours, they're re-engined 47s. So they are these locos, but with new engines in, new internals. I believe they're General Motors based engines. So you could basically say that they're Class 47s that have been LS swapped. They've had Chevrolet V8s put in them, sort of, well, the train equivalent, I guess. And yeah, that's why they look so similar. They are literally re-engined 47s. I like that a lot. You know, finding a use for old locos, recycling old locos, keeping them going. I know there's been some Class 73s that have been re-engined. They're into the 73/9 series with those. They've been re-engined, given a spruce up, and they're good to go again. And they're doing it now with a selection of the old Class 56s, and some of them are being converted, re-engined, and brought out as Class 69s. Say it with me now, nice. So there you go. That's the multiple lives that these things have led. So this is a Class 47/4 that we're driving. 47/469. Again, nice. And I didn't choose the number of the loco. It was randomly generated. I did not choose this life. But yeah, this is a 47/4. And basically what that means is it's got electric train heating. So the original ones would just have, steam heat, I believe. So these have full electric train heating. So those brake vans, those full brake vans will be nice and warm. They'll be nice and toasty for the folks in there sorting the mail. Now, I believe, I'm not sure if it's the case on these or whether it would just specifically be on a travelling post office train, which if you've ever heard the poem, Night Mail by W.H. Auden, the old film made around that poem in 1936, I believe it was, or if you're me, you've heard the song by the brilliant band, one of my favourite bands out there, Public Service Broadcasting, who do a whole song themed around the poem with samples from that film. That's the night mail. That's discussing what was the travelling post office, which is the thing that actually had, like, it was a post office on wheels. That's exactly what it was. It was a fully functioning post office on a train, including it had those mechanisms where it could grab and pick up parcels and mail bags from the side of the line. I believe the Great Central Railway has a full preserved example of that system. They've got a rake of the coaches and the old kind of grabbing arm mechanism system at the line side, which is very, very cool. That's what that was referencing. This is just a general, we've just got a lot of mail to move around, so we're going to bung a load of them into Mark 1 full brake coaches, like I said, which would normally just be full of luggage and stuff anyway, so makes perfect sense. You'd also have things like GOVs, general utility vehicles, I believe that's what that stood for, all sorts of vans and parcels, kind of wagons and vehicles and vans and things like that. It's a kind of traffic that I've always been a bit fascinated with, because it's kind of interesting. It's like somewhere between a passenger and a freight train. It's like a freight train, but without the traditional, you know, freight composition of wagons and things like that. So, and I was talking to my dad about this recently, and he seems to remember, and I don't know if the train we're driving right now would be an example of that, or whether it would have to specifically be the travelling post office, but if you were a stamp collector, you could actually collect the stamp of a letter posted via the travelling post office, because all post offices have their own unique stamp, like an identifier, and the travelling post office would have its own. So you would get a letter specifically stamped and posted via the travelling post office, and that would be part of your collection of stamps and things like that. So it was his own thing. Also, I've just noticed we are coming up on a speed, not a speed restriction as such, but we will have to slow down momentarily. So we're up to 60 miles an hour again. I think we can let off. And still got 2.2 miles to get down to that speed as well, so yeah, we can keep pushing on. Especially as we're climbing quite a steep gradient again. That does seem to happen, you know. Like I said, it's almost like we're in a very hilly part of the world, but what a way of traversing that part of the world. On a beautiful section of railway, in a beautiful old diesel loco, with everyone's morning mail behind us. So who knows? There could be people waking up in Penzance going, "Oh, I wonder if that." I don't know. Well, it wouldn't be a Christmas card. It would be a bit late if it was a Christmas card. They would have missed the Christmas postage times for sure, if that was the case. We're going into another tunnel here, and we are in complete darkness. I can barely see anything. Luckily, I can see enough of the... I like having at least the instrument lights on the panels here. Now, I know the cab lights, there's two separate cab lights on these, and now all of a sudden we're on a 1.6% downhill gradient. So there you go. You've got to keep your wits about you driving this route. We do have a green light, though, green signal. Yeah, there you go. So you've got left and right cab lights. So there's the cab lights on that side, or if we just want this side's one on, I can do that. I don't want any of them on at the moment. So, as we now heading towards, I want to say this is Truro we're coming up on. Quite a steep decline into Truro station. So I'll just pop the brake on, initial application. I feel like we're going to need a bit more of that if we want to slow down to 30 miles an hour in 0.7 of a mile. Yeah, I might just give it a bit more brake if that's all right. Given that we are closing in very rapidly. Yet we're still not slowing down. I'm going to give it full service, actually, because we're on such a steep decline, but it's also a lovely view, and it's a lovely morning, so can you really blame me? Oh, there you go. Sorry, I said I wouldn't spam anymore. Oh, we've got semaphore signals. Oh, yes. A sign you know we're deep into Great Western Country, and especially deep into Cornwall. There we go. Right, we've slowed down to 30 miles an hour. In fact, we're now at 20, 19, 17, 16, 15, 14. I didn't want to actually come to a full stop. I didn't want to do that, and we're now going up an incline again, so there we go. We're good. I do also, for this journey, because sometimes, you know, not even a cup of tea this early in the morning on such a cold January morning will do the trick. Sometimes you need something else. Some chocolate. More specifically, a Kit Kat biscuit. It's very nice. Other chocolate biscuity snacks are available, of course. Just in this case, I've got Kit Kat, and that's fine by me. There we go. Anyway, enough. Right. So to come across the bridge, lovely semaphore signal there. Like I said, short sign we're in deepest Devon now, particularly as we're trundling through Truro Station. I believe this is Truro. Yes, there we go. That'll let everyone know I'm here. There you go. There's a sprinter in the bay platform there. Some wagons, some dogfish wagons over in the sidings over there. There's also, we're now actually speeding a little bit. There's a 37 parked up in the yard there. Another sprinter. Morning, mate. There you go. Oh, and we're now slowing to a stop again. No, we don't need that. We've now got a very steep climb out of the station. And in fact, the speed limit's gone back up to 60. So, you know what I think that calls for? A lot of thrash. Yeah, lots of it. A lot of noise. I think that's what it's called for right now. I'm sure you all agree. But yeah, Simon, we're definitely in deepest Cornwall, where to this day, I believe, in large sections of Cornwall, there's still old semaphore signals. Specifically out in this area, the old Great Western style lower quadrant semaphore signals, because for the most part, with some exceptions, it's quite interesting as well, because look, we've still got colour light signals at certain points, but we've also got semaphores working in tandem as well, just where semaphores, they just never got around to replacing them, and they're just like, well, they still work, so we're good. I'm going to head off over this way. There's another branch line that I'm not entirely sure where it leads. So again, answers in the comments, please. And yeah, with the thing was, back in the day when semaphore signals were de rigueur, just all over the place, most of the rest of the UK used upper quadrants, which basically meant that if it was at a horizontal position, just like flat, stop, which is exactly what the signal in 2.4 miles is saying to us as well. So we'll just have to pay a little bit of attention to that. And if they went up, if they tilted upwards, that will be go. You're good to go. Now, obviously, the Great Western Railway, they like to do things differently. So they decided to do theirs the other way around. If the signal was at horizontal, start to stop, that bit stayed the same. But instead of going up to signify go, their signals went down at an angle, at a sort of diagonal. So the signals in this area, because even after the grouping of British Railways and all that, the semaphore signalling just stayed the same. I guess they just thought, well, drivers in each region know and are used to certain ways, and even if you get a driver that's moving between regions or is not familiar with a different kind of signal, the universal truth is that if a signal's at horizontal, you know, perfectly flat, straight, it's stop. Wherever you are in the country, that means stop. If it's up or down, it probably means go. You're good. So, you know, I've always had a fascination. I think there's something lovely about the old semaphore signals, in the same way there's something lovely about old locomotives and like steam and diesel locomotives. It's the mechanical feeling. It's the fact that if you've ever been at a heritage railway or somewhere on the main line where there's still semaphores, it's not just a light going off or on. It's literally, you hear the kind of clonk, you know, what used to be in fully like hardwired levers from the signal box and things like that. And even now you feel it goes up, it goes shoot, and then if it comes down again, clonk like that. Same with the lower quadrants on the western region. You hear it properly clonk down as it comes down into the go position. Speaking of which, that was timed perfectly because the signal in front of us has just gone to green as well. Green for go, so we're good. We may proceed in our continuing southwesterly direction. And I'm especially fascinated with semaphore signals now because I actually got one as a Christmas present this year in my collection of weird and wonderful railway honour that appears to be massing. Yeah, I now own a semaphore signal. Well, more specifically, the signal arm, not the entire signal. That would take up more than... There's far too much room in my house, I'll be honest. But it's the semaphore signal arm and spectre plate. So it's the complete, you know, the bar, the red bar with the white stripe on it, and the plate at the end where you'd have the green, although it's actually blue, but you'd have the green window and then the red window, to which, you know, when it was in a given position, If it was in the stop position, it would be the red lens would be in front of the lamp on the signal, so it'd be showing a red light. And then when it was in the go position, it would be behind the blue lens, but the yellow light shining through it would make a green colour, so it would show as a green light. So there you go. And yeah, it's just sat next to me here. It's very cool. We seem to have worked out that it may well have come from Morton in Marsh, in the sort of, I want to say Oxfordshire, Gloucestershire way, around that part of the world. Great Western Territory for sure, so it would fit. It's also got a stamp on it. It's all comes from the marks. There's actually like little stamps, like marks on the actual bar, the kind of the blade of the signal, including BR brackets W, which it's British Rail Western Region. Yeah, you can tell that because it's a lower quadrant signal. 1976, which would have been the date that it went up, and MM, which I seem to have identified as the signal box code for Morton in Marsh. But there was a few other signal boxes that appear to have used that code, but they weren't on the Western region. So that's counted the right way. The one that was on the Western region that used the code MM appears to be Morton in the Marsh. So that's really cool. And yeah, I just own a signal now, apparently. The things you get into, the railway are goodies and things that you happen to come across. It's rather fascinating. But yeah, even before then, I always loved the kind of mechanical feeling of old semaphore signals. Like I said, next time you're at a heritage railway, or if you happen to find yourself at a part of the world, on the part of the network where there's still semaphores, I believe, is it Worcester Shrub Hill? I want to say there is a station out in the sort of West Midlands, or like a Worcestershire, Oxfordshire way, where there are still semaphores. In fact, I think Morton in the Marsh might still have semaphores to this day. I know down in Cornwall they still do, because when I visited Penzance myself a few years ago, I came down on this very route, being hauled by a loco that looked a bit like this one, but not quite, because it was a Class 57, because I came down here on the Night Riviera, and it was very lovely. And I remember we crossed over the bridge over Saltash, which is basically the entry, the unofficial entry into Cornwall. I'm trying to remember the actual name of the bridge. One of Brunel's magnificent structures, one of Brunel's many magnificent structures. And I woke up, it was just the first light of dawn, just as we were coming through. So it was like 5 in the morning. This was the height of summer, by the way. So it was darker than this, but obviously it was 5 in the morning in the summertime rather than 8 in the morning in the winter. So it was a spectacular view. And I remember I had breakfast on the train, you know, as we were coming through. It was like 6:30, 7 when we were coming through this part of the route, including this very clearly abandoned station. My abandoned station senses are tingling. They're like Spidey sense, but not quite as good for general things. They're only really activated by signs of old railway things. I'm just sort of walking along an old cycle path or a footpath, and I'm like, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Abandoned railway sense is tingling. Is this the old alignment to a railway? In many cases, the answer is yes. So I wonder. Again, answers in the comments. We need to do some fact finding. We need to do some digging. We know the active stations on this line, and we know a lot about the active routes of this line. What about the abandoned stations? What about the secrets? What are they not telling us? What are you hiding from us, Dovetail Games? Actually, Dovetail Games would probably be like, we're not hiding anything from you, we're just modelling what's there. Very well. In which case, we need to go deeper. Anyway, outside of abandoned stationception, which is the unreleased sequel to the Inception film, never quite gelled the same way with audiences. Anyway, we've got 16 miles to our next go via location marker. We've come through Truro, which always seems to be the sort of first major leg of this route. You kind of have that run down from St Austell to Truro, and I know a lot of the stopping services, or a lot of the sprinter services you get, are like stopping services between Truro and Penzance. I mean, you saw there was a bay platform right there facing in the direction of Penzance at Truro station, and there was a sprinter in it. So I believe we're about a third of the way through the run now, which is useful because we're supposed to be at Penzance, or we're due to arrive at Penzance in about 23 minutes. Yeah, about 22 minutes. I don't know if we're going to be on time for that. I'm really not sure, but we'll do our best. We will do our best. Penzance Platform 1, 9/19/56. So, yeah, about 21 minutes. We may well have 21 minutes to go. And, well, we're giving it the beans right now, because we kind of have to. One of the disadvantages of being an old loco, it's not like the power comes on instantaneously. It's got 2,580 horsepower. Originally, these trains started out with 2,700 horsepower, I believe, and I think they were derated to help with reliability. Just a smidge less horsepower. You can do with like 100 less. You know, in your car, you'd notice if you lost 100 horsepower. On a loco like this, you're fine. You're probably good. So we've got to slow to 40 miles an hour in about 1.3 miles. So let's do that, shall we? Now, we are going up at 1.0% gradient, but it is now leveling out. So that'll help us bleed off some speed. Trying to remember the order of the stations. Like I say, I'm never... I like maps, but then again, I was never very good at geography at school, if that makes sense. I couldn't navigate myself. I like looking at maps, but I can't exactly navigate by them. So I'm trying to remember off the top of my head which the order of the stations we've got coming up. I know St. Earth is the last one before Penzance for us. We might want to start slowing down a bit more, because we're actually now going downhill again. So, once again, them pesky gradients keeping us on our toes. 50, 49, 48, 47. Oh, I think I recognise this one. I recognise this one, but I can't tell you which one it is. It will have to be once we actually get through the station. But I do recognise it, because I believe I visited here on my trip to Penzance that I was mentioning about before. On the Night Riviera, I stayed in Penzance for a few days, had a little summer break down there. It was lovely. Very, very nice. What a gorgeous part of the world. And Penzance itself is beautiful, as you'll see in this run, hopefully. And I remember travelling around a bit, around Cornwall. And I think I came up to this... Oh, no, it wasn't quite this station. I think I'm thinking of Camborne. I'm probably thinking of Camborne, and I want to say this is Redruth. Yeah, I think this is Redruth. Where's the running in board? Where are they? Where are they? Yes, it's Redruth. Okay, so this is Redruth. And somewhere soon will be the stop for Camborne, which I remember visiting because I believe it's in that area where the Kernow Model Railway Centre people are based. So I went to look around at some small trains, very small trains. And I also went up to St. Earth to take a visit to St. Ives. One of the most beautiful places I think I've ever been to in my life. It is absolutely stunning. What a gorgeous little branch line run out to St. Ives. The station at St. Ives is pretty tiny compared to what it used to be. It used to be pretty epic for what it was, mainly because it had to fit in such ginormous holiday trains. Like full-length expresses had to go down that line because it was just so many people wanted to go to the seaside there. And, I mean, the station itself is pretty... There's not much left of what was there in terms of the station, but the views that you get out across the bay there is absolutely gorgeous. I remember coming around the corner and seeing the kind of beach and the coves spreading out in the distance and the sea, and my mouth just fell open. I was like a cartoon character. It just went clangs on the floor. It was stunning. Absolutely beautiful. So then I got off the train and I remember looking around and going, wow, beach and seaside, what a lovely view. Anyway, where's the pub? And I spent most of the afternoon in a lovely local pub, which is really nice. And very, very cool. I have nothing but happy memories of my trips to Devon and Cornwall, as do my family, to be honest, especially my dad. Like I said, he loved train spotting down in the West Country. Mainly because that was where his beloved westerns roamed a lot of the time. It was the best combination of seeing his favourite locomotives around, which were the westerns, and his favourite parts of the railway network in terms of scenery and things like that, which were the West Country, out this way. And what I think is quite interesting, I'd love to see if Dovetail fancy implementing this at some point. I would love to see, because basically, technically this route is supposed to be set, I think, in the early 90s, which is kind of perfect for me, because that's when I was born. So it's right in my era, it's right in my vintage, if you will. Just got to be careful not to start speeding a bit here. Once again, we're going down quite a steep incline. This might be Camborne we're coming up on, actually. I just remember seeing like a footbridge just kind of beyond the station. I think I remember crossing that bridge. I kind of did a big lap of the town and then came over the footbridge and went back to the station that way. So, well, we've got a green signal. That's all fine. We can do 70 miles an hour in a minute if we want to. So, yeah, one thing I would love to see Dovetail Games do, if they can, add some extra features to the route, is they've already, because when it first released, it just had the Sprinter and 37/5 with it, which is great. That covers what you need in those early 90s runs. However, they do have a couple of locos and trains and units in the game that would feel right at home here in various eras, namely the Class 52 Western and the HST. Now, the Westerns called this line home from their introduction in the, coming brain off the top of my head, I want to say the late 50s, early 60s, through to their withdrawal in 1975-76. So, oh, there you go, there's a level crossing back there. This might be once again, this should be Camborne, isn't. So, yeah, this was their home for the longest time, hauling express trains and things like that. So, the fact that they're in the game, I mean, you've got the old style maroon half yellow ends livery on the preserved Western Campaigner in the West Somerset Railway route. That's the old school one, if you want to do like a 60s vibe. Or through late 60s, early 70s until their withdrawal, you've got the BR Blue livery from the Legends of the Great Western Pack for the Great Western Express route, Paddington to Reading. So you've got that, and they would fit in perfectly down here. And because a lot of the infrastructure hasn't changed, this is Camborne. Here we go. There we go. There's Camborne. We trundle through at 50 miles an hour. Honk. There we go. And what's that? We can do 70 miles an hour now. Well, don't mind if I do, really. Because I suspect we might have some time to make up. I've been rambling quite a lot. I don't know if you noticed that. I do like doing that. But yeah, not only would the Westerns fit in down here perfectly in a sort of early 70s vibe, the HSTs would fit in down here in all sorts of vibes because, well, they superseded the Westerns on this route, on cross-country, big express intercity trains, City 125, literally in the name. And so we're just going to let off now. We're now at 70. We're going downhill quite a lot, and we're going to have to slow it back to 60. So, there, you see what I was saying earlier? Colour light there. We've still got a lot of semaphores down here as well. So, give me a bit more break. Come on. I've just unlocked an achievement. TSW2 Officer. I'm not sure what that means. Maybe it's a specific sort of mileage achievement. But, we're not going to break in time. 63, 62, 61. It's close enough. Come on, give me that. It's close enough. We now have to slow to 50 miles an hour in another mile, so I'm just going to leave the brake on a bit more there. We should hit 50 pretty easily. We're already down to 53. But yeah, you've got so the Westerns will be perfect with this route as well, plus the HSTs, because, well, they ran on this route from 76 onwards, 76, 77 onwards, all the way up until they retired all of 3 years ago. And I was there in their last week of runs on the Great Western Main Line, Paddington all the way down to Penzance. And the great thing is, you've got all sorts of eras. You've got the original British Rail days, the intercity liveries, the Swallow livery, my favourite, amazing. That's the one I grew up with. You've got all the different, post-privatisation liveries that they could run down here. And in the game already, you've got the modern-day GWR liveried HSTs from, again, the Great Western Express route. You could run those down here, St Austell to Penzance, simulating a London Paddington to Penzance service. And what you could also do, of course, is since they were retired from the in-city duties, they've now been put back into service in shorter form as the, what are they called? The castle sets. That's the one. You can make some slightly edited liveries for them, give them the nameplates and that, and there you go. You've got 4 coach sets. Maybe tweak them a little bit where a lot of them have been, I think all of them actually, have been converted to central locking, or what's the word? Not, oh my goodness, what is the word? Press button to open, like, not non-manual doors, I should say. That is also another abandoned platform. So, detectives, we need to get on that. But yeah, you could simulate them in that form, with the central locking and, you know, but not central locking, the push button to open. Well, oh my God, I'm tripping. Do you ever get that where you just like can't remember a certain word? Hopefully you guys understand what I'm trying to say, but yeah, you could easily simulate that. So it'll be really cool to have that functionality in the game. Now, of course, you can create custom services. So it might be something I end up playing around with it a bit. But if it's in the game to begin with, that would also be really cool as well. In the same way that they have added some other locos that would have fit in perfectly on this route at certain points in history. Like this would have been all over it through the 70s and 80s, and in different liveries through into the 90s. The Peaks, the Class 45s, which also come from the Northern Transpennine route as well, I believe, they fit in perfect down here because they mostly did cross-country services, if I remember rightly. Or rather, if I remember what my dad has told me rightly. He always says they used to run like the cross-country services, which, I mean, I don't want to say things were always better back in the old days, but all I'm going to say is back in those days, it would have been a Class 45 Peak, diesel loco, full-length express train for your cross-country services from, you know, Birmingham to Penzance and all across the country. Nowadays, it probably will be a Voyager. And, you know, I'm not the biggest fan of Pacers, but if there is one unit I don't like, I like even less than Pacers, it's Voyagers. So that is not a downgrade. That is not improvement. That is not the march of progress and, you know, modernity in my books. But you can simulate the old peak hauled cross-country services on this West Cornwall local route as well. And that's very cool. Very cool. Always cool to have more loco hauled passenger services. And, I mean, goodness me, like, can you imagine the when, you know, obviously for years and years now, there's been the tease of eventually getting Steam services into Train Sim World, which will be just an absolute game changer. Can you imagine when that's the case? Oh my word. Doing a run like this at the controls of a Great Western King or Castle or Hall, hauling your fitted or unfitted freights with a pannier tank engine or a GWR 280, something like that, a Mogul maybe. Whoo-wee! Possibilities are endless. You can also tell I'm rather a Great Western Railway nerd. The south and the west are my sort of home areas of the map. I'm obviously a southern boy. I've grown up in Kent, so I'm a southern region boy, I guess. You know, it's as if I'm supporting companies that haven't existed in over, you know, like hundreds, almost 100 years. Almost exactly 100 years, actually. Because in 1923 was the grouping that formed the Big Four. And, well, next year will be 2023. So there we go. Also, I've got to slow down to 45 miles an hour. So let's do that, shall we? Let's make that happen while I also have a bit more Kit Kat. There we go. 50, 49, 47, 46, 45. There we go. And what station is this? Oh, do you know what? Hang on a minute. No, that's the scenic thing. Okay, it doesn't show what. Hang on. I'm getting confused here. There we go. No, where's my train? I need to get back on it. There we go. We're good. I didn't just have an out-of-body experience and lose control of my train. Didn't do that. But I'm trying to remember what station that was. I guess we'll just have to check the map at when we get off at Penzance. We'll have to check one of the maps on the platforms, of which there are plenty. Speaking of which, we can now do 70 miles an hour again, so I think we should. Given that we are supposed to be at Penzance in 7 minutes time. We've got go via location is 4.1 miles. Once we get to St. Earth, I'll know we're not very far away. So with any luck, we shouldn't be too far behind. Like I say, it's a mail train. It's not sticking strictly to, you know, timetabling, but, you know, I like to be punctual. I'm not very good at it, but I do like to be. If I can be, I do like to be. And, you know, any excuse to let the souls and motors make a lovely racket. And then they do like doing that. They do rather like doing that. And of course, you know, Doris wants to get her mail. Nigel wants to get his mail. I don't know what that mail is. To be honest, to be honest, they might not want it. If it's a council tax bill, they might not want it. Oh, here we go. This looks like St. Earth. Here we go. This is St. Earth. So right there, well, let's give it a honk of the horn. There we go, straight through St. Earth. Over there is the Bay platform. That's actually got some wagons in it at the moment, but that's the branch for the line down to St. Ives. And you probably saw as we came to the station there, an absolute festival of semaphore signals. They're all over the place, and when I went down there in 2019, they're still there. So here we go. Here's one on the left. So here we go. It's in the down position, lower quadrant, to symbolise go. And as we go through, it will, I don't know if you can see it in the distance. I don't know if you can see it in the distance. There we go. It's clonked up into the horizontal position. So there we go. That's how your lower quadrant semaphores work in Devon and Cornwall. Well, all over a lot of the western region. So lots of Wales, most of Wales as well. The West Midlands as well. I always find the West Midlands part of the Great Western Railway, or the Western region, particularly interesting, because you kind of got a mix of like urban environment, especially around Birmingham and that, and a lot of the rural loveliness. Like the Severn Valley Railway is one of the best heritage railways around. I can't wait to visit it for another station on the mile at some point. The last time I visited, I was a very, very small boy, and apparently my dad got into a very interesting conversation with a signalman. He was being shown around the signal box, but because I was like 5 years old, I got bored within 10 minutes. And so I was like, Dad, can we go now? And he was like, no, I don't want to. This is so fascinating. He was like having a full-on nerd out. And even though I was 5 at the time, you know, I feel bad about it. So next time we go, I'm going to take him with me, and I'm going to say, look, he's very interested in signals. Show him around to a signal box, and I'm going to leave him with you for the rest of the day, probably. But, yeah, what was I going before that? But yeah, the Severn Valley Railway, that's right out there, Kidderminster. It's kind of in the rural West Midlands area. And that's gorgeous. It's a beautiful line. Absolutely stunning. And we are supposed to be doing 50 miles an hour in 2.1 miles, but we also have to stop in 1.6. So either way, we're just coasting. We've got the brakes on an initial application. So whether that initial application is successful, we'll see. Whether they make it, whether the brakes make it to the interview stage. About 3 miles. Still slowing down. We got this under control. Oh! 147 going the other way. Morning. That's for the passenger train. There we go. Lovely. Now, just imagine a Western on the front of that. Make it happen, Dovetail. Or I will myself, probably. Right, so still 1 mile. Although, again, is it going to be... I've just thought about this, because I can see the go via location marker is 0.6 miles away. The red signal's 0.9. So I wonder. I'm going to keep it nice and slow anyway, just in case we do have to stop. Because it won't give us much time. If we're pelting through still at full speed, and we do still have to stop for the red signal, we won't have time to stop. Or if we do, everyone on board will... If any of the guys if anyone in the coach is behind me sorting through the mailbags and that is got their morning coffee with them, they're probably going to end up wearing it. Fortunately, I finished my tea, so that's not a risk for me. And I finished my Kit Kat as well, so there you go. So we're trundling along at 30 miles an hour, well, 32 miles an hour. So let's see if we get the green, if we get a green signal when we come through this location. Sometimes it's like an automatic marker. It's like as a train passes through, it goes, yep. It's like it sort of goes, let me check for you. Is the route clear? Yeah, it's good. Don't just go through and assume it's clear. Let me check for you first. Okay, it's good. You're good. So here we go. Trundling through. And, well, it's still red. It is still red. So, let's see here. In fact, there it is. There it is. I'm putting the brakes on. We're going to have to. We're going to have to stop. And hopefully the brakes on this thing are up to the task. Give me full service. Come on, this is always the most nail-biting bit. And there we go. We're going to stop in time. And then what we'll do is just sort of inch forward towards it. And then see, sometimes if you get really close to the signal, it sort of picks up the detection and goes, oh, there's a train here? Oh, you want to go through? Yeah, all right. You're good to go. But at least we've stopped in time. And now we're struggling to start again. This is a lot of power. Quite a heavy load behind us. We're on a slight uphill incline. It's a January morning, so the rails are probably not very misty and slippery. Bully Pacific wouldn't enjoy this. Not at all. The wheel spin merchants that they were. Just, can a steam train do burnouts? Yes, just watch a Bully Pacific. And I love them to bits. They're my joint favourite steam loco of all time. The holy trinity of steam locos for me is the GWR Castles, the Bully Pacifics, both rebuilt and unrebuilt, and the BR Standard 9Fs. The absolute thick boys. The thickest of boys. So we're inching forward, still inching forward. Still inching forward. We're supposed to be at Penzance like in 30 seconds, so I'm not going to get a move on, unless we've been parked in behind a passenger train. That could have happened. Still inching forward, inching forward. I mean, how close do you want me to get? 14, 13. There we go. Bring it to a stop. There we go. Right. Well, I guess we'll just have to wait here for a bit then. So, I assume some sort of passenger train has been routed in front of us. So, we'll just have to wait here for a moment, I guess. Well, we could do. Procedure signals indicate. Oh, there we go. Right at the exact moment I went to contact the signaller, it went green. So there you go. All right, okay, we're not going to quite hit our 19 minutes and 56 seconds past 9 target, but we'll be close enough. Oh, there we go. That's probably the train that got in our way. Morning. 2-car Sprinter going through. Can we get moving again, though? That would be rather nice. Release the brake. There we go. I think because I put the throttle on while the brake was still on, so it didn't engage properly. All right, let's give it the beans, shall we? Go. Not far to go now, only 2.1 miles. So we'll have the run through past Penzance Long Rock Depot, which is a lovely site, by the way. Really nice. Right on, because you've got the kind of footpath along the sea, along the beachfront. So on there's the beach on one side and these railway lines on your other side, and they're very close. So you can literally look across the tracks at Penzance Long Rock. When I went down there in 2019, I remember walking up and having a look, and there was at least 2 08s in the yard, Class 08 shunters, and one of the Class 57s from the Night Riviera, sort of just in the doorway of one of the sheds. The door was open, but it just looked like it was kind of tucked inside, just kind of having a nap, which is understandable. It worked a night shift. He worked all night. You know, he's got to have a sleep. You know, he's got to have a rest. I'd be flipping tired if I had to haul a massive, long, heavy train full of people across the country all night for about 8 hours, I think it is. I mean, yeah, there's stops on the route, but you know what I mean. All right, so we've got a 50-mile-an-hour speed limit now, but that's fine. We're not at it 50 yet. So let's at least get to 50, shall we? Because once again, we're going into another bit of single track for the run to Penzance. Now, I'm fairly certain... Actually, do you know what? I'm not sure. This looks like it always would have been single track. It might always have been. Or it might well have been double track at some point, just like the part earlier, west of St Austell. There you go, there's Long Rock. Interestingly, there's a rake of full brake coaches, so more parcels traffic out there. Some wagons and a 37. Morning. And yeah, there's Long Rock Depot, so there you go. On the one side, you've got Long Rock Depot, and on the other side, you've got the beach. And what a gorgeous morning view. This is actually very similar to the view I was treated to when I came down here on the Night Riviera. Because it was about an hour it was about an hour and a half earlier than this. It was around, 7:45 in the morning, or about 8 in the morning when we got in. Of course, like I said, height of summer. Oh, there's an 08 over there as well. Morning. I love 08s. 08s and panniers and little kind of shunter locos, some of my favourites. I absolutely love the Great Western Pannier tanks. They are just the cutest things. Some of you may be saying, is that because of Duck from Thomas the Tank Engine? Quite possibly, but they're lovely little things. They just have the most charm of, like, they're just a rough, tough, good little worker doing a heckin' big chuff and just trying to do a heckin' good job, you know? That's just what they do. I love listening to them. I love, you know, seeing, especially on heritage lines, getting to haul passenger trains, because they were mostly just freight locos, you know. Shunters, basically. And, yeah, just them pootling and, you know, proper, and because they're Great Western, all Great Western steam locos barked. Like, they didn't care about how much noise they made, just as long as they made it to where they had to go on time. And because they were powerhouses, because they had to be, because they had to climb all the steep inclines of, you know, Wales and Devon and Cornwall, as we've already discussed, they balked. They were talky boys. So, yeah, there's a lovely video I saw the other day, actually, of a pannier hauling a passenger train on the Severn Valley, and it's taken from, you know, the window behind the loco sort of thing. And, oh, it's just lovely. It's just beautiful. It's just the sound of like a morning, I'm gonna get you there. It's brilliant. And the Class 08 has that similar vibe for me as a diesel version of the pannier or something like that. Similar sort of loco. We've actually slowed down early. What is going on with me? But we're trundling in. We're cruising in. Plus, I've also noticed we've got to slow down to 15 miles an hour in a minute anyway, and there's a yellow signal, so I'm just being cautious in case we have to stop in the station throat for us to get our the road into our platform, which is platform 4. So, yeah, we'll give it a little bit of juice. Why not? And what, I mean, look at that. What an absolutely stunning view. Just absolutely magical. The beach and the sea are right over there. And there's Penzance stretching round. It's all just lovely. It's all just brilliant. And I'm a big fan of it. So now we have to go to 15 miles an hour. That'll do. What a lovely morning to enter the station in. I've also just noticed there are a few little clumps of snow around. It's quite realistic. It kind of looks like it snowed during the night, but it kind of melted away when the sun came up, which is very common for British winters over here. Hence why when there is actual proper full snow, we're not very good at it. Oh, we've been routed over here. So platform 1's there, 2 and 3 there. 4 is this one over here. The sort of, I would say the bay platform, but it's like, that's not quite the way to describe it. It's the one kind of outside of the train shed. And speaking of 08s, there's one over there. It's programmed basically to be the station pilot, which is lovely. But basically what that means is it will come out and shunt the coaches around to free the locos, let them change ends, pop up to Long Rock Depot to get refueled and have a wash and things like that. So that will sort of trundle around, do a hecking big trundle and shunt coaches around, things like that. So it might well do it with the rake of coaches we've got once they've been emptied of Doris's mail and Nigel's mail as well. Don't forget him. He'll be very grumpy if we forget his mail. Let's get the stop right. We didn't come all this way just to fall short or overshoot and crash. And now, there we go. That'll do. Well, that's us done for the day. There's our train standing in platform 4 at Penzance. And in fact, you know, I said before about ice cream. Don't mind if I do. You know, I said before about checking the map. So, St Austell, Truro, Redruth, Camborne, Hale. And there's the St Erth branch with the intermediate stops at Leyland, Saltings, Leyland, Carbis Bay and St Ives, and then there's Penzance down there. So, also there were those abandoned stations and those secret branch lines we had to figure out. And there's a poster to put up. Meantime, I'm off to get some breakfast, because it's still early in the morning here. So, I've worked the morning mail train down to Penzance. We'll finish this town and get some breakfast. There'll probably be a nice cafe around here somewhere. Thank you all so much for watching along and for hanging out with me today. If you want to follow my Another Station, Another Mile channel, search that on YouTube basically. There'll be links appearing on the screen right now for that and for my Twitch channel where I do stream Train Simulator and Train Sim World. Have a lovely day. See ya.